So the players of India, Pakistan and Bangladesh were supposed to play in the same team. And generally think is they give all the credit to Mohammed Jinnah, him being the main reason for the partition. But that's not totally true, to be honest. If you want to be with these people, if you want to rule over these people, you need to understand the language. This person is where the two-nation theory actually came out. So the revolt of the first battle of independence, as I would like to call it. English guy might call it the revolt of 1857, but for us, it is the first battle of our independence. Yes, right. The case. Khilafat movement was to instill caliph back in the Ottoman Empire. Back in Turkey, yeah, which was Ottoman Empire back then. It was. When Bengal was partitioned in 1905, the resistance Hindu communities based in Bengal basically showed towards it. That somewhere led to the formation of the All India Muslim League. But Jinnah was offered the Prime Minister post 3 times. So, do you remember back in 2020, I guess, there was a series announced between Asia 11 and World 11 in Bangladesh. So, unfortunately, due to COVID, we missed out on this. And this has been long due. I don't know if it's ever going to happen again or not. So, there was basically, to celebrate the 100th birth anniversary of founding father of Bangladesh, a cricket series was announced between the two teams called as Asia 11 and World 11. Okay. So, the players of India, Pakistan and Bangladesh were supposed to play in the same team. Oh, okay. Which is one of the rarest events, as any cricket fan would know that.
Could you happen to remember this founding father's name?
Yeah, I guess he is Sheikh Mujibur Rahman.
Is he by chance to the current Prime Minister?
Yeah, he is father of this Prime Minister. Okay. So yeah, whenever we talk about what if India haven't been partitioned ever, the first thing people come up with is a strong cricket team. For some reason.
I mean, that's the only thing we cover. I can't even think of anything else. Right.
So, do you actually know the story of how India was partitioned into 2 pieces?
Yeah, I mean, I have a brief understanding of what exactly happened, but I think that's what we're here for today, right?
Yeah.
I want to put it this way. Why was India partitioned, right? And today in this episode of Beyond the Blurred Lines, we're going to talk, we are unraveling the history, and the part 1 right now is Decoding Indian Partition. So yeah, Bala, so why do you think, right, there was a necessity for India to be divided in the first place?
So what,
I think let's discuss about what led to all this.
Yeah. So basically the thing is, that's what people generally think is, they give all the credit to Mohammed Jinnah, him being the main reason for the partition. But that's not totally true, to be honest. There's a lot more to the story than just Jinnah or Muslim League. So yeah, this is a very long history. Where to start with? Let's start with this question firstly. Are Hindi and Urdu primarily the same language? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when someone talks to me in Urdu, I kind of get a hangout.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I can literally understand 80% of what they speak. Unless the poetic part of it, of course. But it's similar to it. I can't say they are one and the same. But I think if you're tracing back to the origins of Indian Urdu, probably they might actually come from the same style.
Yeah, bottom line is here, the Hindi and Urdu guy can very comfortably communicate with each other.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, true.
Yeah, so if we just try to trace back the history, one thing you must know is when the Islamic invaders came to India, all the Islamic rulers came to India, the official language of India for 900 years was Persian. Persian was the official language throughout this period. And so all these rulers used to talk in Persian, and the common public outside used to talk in some form or the other of Prakrit.
Which is Sanskrit?
Yeah, Prakrit is basically the uncivilized form of Sanskrit. Basically, Prakrit and Sanskrit are
it's basically Sanskrit unfiltered. Does not have the true essence of Sanskrit, but you can actually speak it in a daily sense.
Yeah. So all these ancient languages like Braj-Bhasha, Awadhi, all of these, some of which we might have heard, are some or the other form of Prakrit. Okay. So all these rulers talking in Prakrit and the common people talking in these Prakrit form of languages, somewhere, like there had to be a middle language, to translate both of these. So this, in the literature, what they came up with was a sandwich of both the languages. Okay, Prakrit and Persian. So that was called as Rektha. And in the south, same thing. Sandwich of Dakkani and Persian was known as Rekti. So this same language, while actual communication in the outside society, that was called as Hindustani first. So there was no Hindi or Urdu essentially. The only language that existed in India was Hindustani for a very long time. So there is this one doctor from British, his name is, I guess, John Gilchrist. Okay. He left his medical practice, he came to India for indigo farming. Okay. Though his farming was not that successful, what he had managed was, he met a lot of people in India, understood what Indians truly are and all. He went back to British, and one thing was clear in his mind. If you want to be with these people, if you want to rule over these people, you need to understand the language. So he was the one who kind of brought it into British government's notice, and he set up a college in Kolkata.
Do you happen to remember the name of this college?
I don't exactly remember the name. I mean, people can find it out.
Yeah, I will put it in the section.
Yeah. So he essentially set up a college for the Britishers to learn the local language.
And it was Hindustani.
For the local language, which was Hindustani. So John Gilchrist, truly believed that the Indian languages are derived from Sanskrit and they have been corrupted by Persian. So by this time, also the British government, one more thing which they did was, under the British Raj, Persian was removed as the official language of India. Okay, and Hindustani was brought in. This hurt the sentiment of lot of Islamic scholars. So what they did was, the literature whichever they used to write, they started to hyper-Persianize it. Okay. Use complicated Persian words and stuff.
That's where, the Urdu poetry comes in.
Yeah.
Something similar to it.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it comes in. So, until that point, everything was so similar. Okay. So, by, the moment you hyper-Persianize things, so a fiction gets detached to it. Okay. And at the same time, John Gilchrist, truly believing that Sanskrit was the original language of this region, he motivated a lot of Indian scholars to use Sanskrit in Hindustani. Okay. Which essentially gave birth to Hindi and Urdu being separate languages.
So this was around what time?
It's late 17th century.
Late 17th century. So tell me one thing now. We get this Hindustani part because it comes somewhere in the northern region of India. Right?
Yeah.
So when you come to the southern region, as you mentioned, Rekti, right? So do you think there was an influence of these early languages of Tamil, Malayalam, Telugu there, or was it something completely different from, because you, as you mentioned, you don't follow India spoke.
I mean, Dakkani itself also comes due to the Islamic rule in this region of South India. Okay. Mainly the Nizams and stuff. So that basically doesn't have any relation to the South Indian languages.
Okay, so their origins is different. Also, yeah, that's okay. So that's why there's a lot of different ethnic groups spread out throughout the southern of India. Cool. So, and maybe that's why we also have a lot of Hindi-speaking communities in the northern part of India, and Dakkani has this wide variety of different ethnic groups in southern part of India.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what this did was, at least in the literary community, it had started to create a rift between the two groups in form of Hindi and Urdu. But for a common man, it didn't matter.
Because they were able to understand both the languages.
Yeah, they essentially spoke Hindustani, everyone. It was one language for them. So, by the time after the revolt of the first battle of independence, as I would like to call it, English guy might call it the revolt of 1857, but for us, it is the first battle of our independence. Yes, right. So, after this time, this scholar by the name of Syed Ahmed Khan was the founder of AMU. He had written a book known as essentially showcasing the causes of the 1857 mutiny. Okay.
what led to 1857?
So essentially, a lot of people believe that this book and this person is where the two-nation theory actually came out.
So you're basically telling a two-nation theory existed 100 years before the independence, or 90 years before.
Yeah, the concept was actually there. It didn't have a voice to it yet.
But then there was a mention of two-nation theory in the book. Okay, cool.
So from this is where exactly the concept of two-nation theory enters
the whole
system.
Okay, cool.
And the thing which gave strength to this thing was the Parliamentary reforms of 1909.
Okay. Can you briefly explain?
So what happened was when Bengal was partitioned in 1905, the resistance Hindu communities based in Bengal basically showed towards it. That somewhere led to the formation of the All India Muslim League back then. So the formation of All India Muslim League was primarily to preserve the identity of the Muslim community in this country. So they demanded special electoral rates for them. At this time, there were legislatures in India around. People could actually come and vote.
Yes.
There was a so-called government which didn't have much role.
Mind you, I think these were purely based on religion, if I'm not wrong. And people used to vote purely based on religion.
Yeah, that's what Parliamentary reforms was. They provided a communal reserved legislatures.
Okay.
So that is where this separate identity of Islam was essentially promoted. Yeah. So that was happened in 1909, and the final nail on the coffin came during the non-cooperation movement.
Okay.
In 1919, when non-cooperation movement was happening, Gandhiji essentially supported the Khilafat movement.
Yes.
So today,
it was started by Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, or is it I think there were two brothers, right? Don't remember the names of them. There were two brothers who were actually, I think it was Syed Ali Pathan, not really sure, but they were the ones who actually started it. And I think it was, a major movement in India, right?
Yeah.
I think it was an identity for Muslims as well back in the day. I think it ran for 4 years.
So, what actually, people today might feel Khilafat, the word means you're fighting Khilaf something.
Right.
But that's not actually the case. Khilafat movement was to instill a caliph back in the Ottoman Empire.
Back in Turkey.
Which was Ottoman Empire back then. So, Ottoman Empire lost the World War I in the hands of British. So, they were under British at this moment.
Yeah.
So, a colony in this western part of Asia, essentially, for that, another colony was raising its voice, which somewhere doesn't make any sense. So, what is this caliph? So, according to Islam, caliph is someone who is kind of a ruler for the entire Islam in the world.
Yes, correct.
So all the Muslim community wanted to install a caliph. That's why this Khilafat movement was going on, which essentially turned out to be a failure, which somewhere, led to this feeling of all the Muslims in the nation started to feel somewhere cheated by the efforts put in by our leaders. So that somewhere was the final nail on the coffin for this entire thing.
So you mean to say that there were kind of disturbances within the nation because there is this religious identity whole thing going on, and then if we see we are minority right now and there are majorities there and we might not be heard. I think that was their main concern.
Yeah.
Maybe it was not on religious lines, but it was more of as we're minority we might not be heard.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
Now this is where actually Jinnah and the Muslim League come into the picture. So do you know also, before all this happened, in this time of 20 years from the 1920s and 30s, there were also times where during the elections, the Muslim League and Hindu Mahasabha formed coalitions together just to be in power against the Congress.
See, that was, I think, one good takeaway for the present leaders from the past, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually good to hear. And then they actually formed the government. or something like that, or due to these coalitions, or what had happened?
Yeah, there was like essentially nothing called as government. These were just,
For namesake, right?
yeah, just.
Because essentially all of them were under British rule at the end of the day.
So it was, at 1946 elections.
Mhm.
That's when, Muslim League had shown substantial majority. What about like 80%? They won around like 425 seats or something, if I'm not wrong.
296.
Yeah. So that's when like message was very clear, evident. People wanted donation theory to be real.
But then there is also like a catch here, right? See, out of these 496 seats and these 425 seats which Muslim League had won, and it did not actually mean that was common man's voice, right? Common man, I think at the end of the day, common man never wanted that partition.
True.
And it was just that it was basically at the end of it, it comes down to power dynamic.
Yeah.
So because in these 425 seats, as you said, I think some people were literally swayed away by Jinnah. Maybe it can be some kind of benefits that he wanted to give at some point of time. And this was basically, they wanted to show that this is people's thing, but at the end of the day, it was a very selfish motive. Correct?
Yeah. Also, like, you need to understand, like, who are the people who were eligible to vote back then? The voting system was not like it is today. The only people who own lands, who are like in a substantial place in the society, were allowed to vote, basically.
Basically, it is aristocrat.
Yeah.
Like,
They were the people who voted. The common man in the street was not allowed to vote. So his voice was never being heard.
but they portrayed it that it's a common man's thing, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what would give them the mileage to go.
So at this time, Congress was definitely against formation of two nations. So they tried a lot, actually. And, throughout this process, they tried a lot to convince Jinnah against this. Jinnah was offered the prime minister post 3 times during this period.
Actually, very surprised.
So yeah, in 1938,
The complete independent India.
Yeah.
Jinnah was offered 3 times the prime ministerial candidate.
Yeah.
And he declined it.
once in
That has to be insane, right?
1938 by Subhash Chandra Bose,
Okay.
in 1940 by Gandhi, and again in 1947 by Jawaharlal Nehru.
And he declined all the 3 years.
That's one heck of a decision. So, yeah, like, as Congress was against it, what happened in 1946 essentially? Jinnah declared the Direct Action Day.
Or worst days ever in the Indian history.
Yeah. It was like one of the most brutal civil war you could ever see.
We massacre all throughout Calcutta.
And Punjab.
And then, so direct action days were direct action day was the actual day where all this whole massacre had started, right?
Yeah.
I mean, killings from Lahore, Punjab to Calcutta in August. And then you had this very deadly Naokali raids, which was very brutal.
Mm.
And I think that's what gave them, Casey, boss, we need another state. Otherwise, you people are gonna die.
Yeah.
But thing is, I think no one ever speaks about Naokali riots as they speak about these Lahore the massacre in Lahore, Punjab, and Calcutta. I mean, doing the brutality is too much.
I mean, like, it's very unfortunate thing. There are a lot of things in our history people don't speak about today.
Yeah, that's actually true.
So, yeah. After all this, what basically happened was there was a power change in Britain government in 1946, post the World War. Clement Attlee became the prime minister, and he was a guy, who was like somewhere against this colonial form of rule of self. He decided like to leave out all the communities, all the colonies, essentially. So he decided India will be independent by June 1948, actually.
Okay.
And a new viceroy was sent to India in the March of 1947, who was Lord Mountbatten. So even Mountbatten was
I think he was sent in 46 or 47.
47, March 47. Yeah, like, he very reluctantly came to India because he knew, like, he is going to be the one whose hands were going to be washed in the blood of the Civil War.
Yeah, makes sense, right? I mean, why would you want to do it?
So he was also someone like who was definitely against the partition of India. He tried a lot to convince him, and he was the one who motivated Nehru to offer Jinnah the prime minister post for the third time.
And what surprises me is Nehru giving it up.
Yeah, I mean, like, you need to do something to save the interest of people.
I to think Nehru being not selfish for once was actually kind of funny, right?
I mean, like, there is this. It's a gray area actually. Like what people talk today.
Right.
You need to give credit to Nehru.
Yeah, of course. No, that's actually true. I mean, he was a guy. Was like the way India had gone after independence. They have progressed. I mean, yes, you got to give credit to Congress. In the initial stages of how they have handled the whole democracy part of India, right? And see, look at Pakistan now.
Yeah, exactly. Like they have implemented martial law, I guess, thrice or four times.
Yeah.
In the country, and I also came across this thing. No prime minister has completed their full-time term in Pakistan.
And I think every time they do something good, military overthrows them. And I mean, I don't know whether it's good or bad, but at some point of time, military comes in, overthrows.
That's a very unfortunate thing for mankind to happen.
That's true.
So yeah, Mountbatten essentially tried to convince Jinnah a lot against partition. They, in this period, they came up with a lot of plans to avoid partition, essentially. Okay. One of the, most significant plan was, to divide India into zones. You would have zone A, B, and C, which was basically Hindu majority region was zone A, Muslim majority was zone B, and princely states for zone C. This was basically a federal form of idea where all these zones will have independent governments, which will in turn be, governed by a central government body, which also was just for the namesake.
So there was no power with the central government.
No, not much. So this is where on June 3rd of 1947, the Congress also ultimately had to agree for partition.
On partition, not this.
No.
Three zone theory.
No. This is where Patel had famously said the only choice we had was between formation of two nations or many nations.
Yeah, which actually made sense because if you're giving away a chunk of it, then there is high. If you're following the three zone theory, then one day even Hyderabad would have asked for other country.
Many states. Yeah. So on June 3rd, they had to accept it. And after which Mountbatten famously had a press conference to announce the Indian Independence Act, where he was asked this question. By this time, British government had actually decided we don't need to stay until June 1948. We can finish things prior to that.
So basically, June 1948 was where British government had officially told the Congress that you will be getting your independence.
Yeah.
So it was around June 1948.
So by this time they realized that much time is not needed. So in that press conference when Mountbatten was asked, do you have a date in mind? He very famously told yes, where actually there was no date.
He just randomly, he just blurted out yes so that he wouldn't be getting asked more questions, right?
He didn't expect people to ask him the date, which he was in turn, and he just came up with 15th August 1947.
And I think the significance of this date is very important.
Yeah, it was a VJ Day. It was very
victory over Japan Day.
In terms of World War II history, that is a very significant day for the Allied powers.
That's where Allied powers had won the war. Won the war in Japan and famously surrendered. Verbally surrendered. I think on paper they surrendered. I think on 2nd September. But then the 15th August was there. The war is officially ended, and that's how we famously got our independence, guys.
And it's not yet over. The story of how the borders were drawn.
Oh yeah, that is I think one of the most. I think it's history. If we look back at it, I think it's after 76 years. We look back at it and we are like, dude, how did you even come up with that? That stupid idea, right?
Yeah. So this guy called as Sir Cyril Ratcliffe comes to India for the first time in the July of 1947.
He has no clue.
Yeah.
Of how I think he was literally coming to India for the first time. he had no clue how geographies of India worked, or I think in his life, he had not seen the map of India.
Also how the demographics of this nation works.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he basically,
He was a cartographer, right?
what he basically did was he took a census map of India, and based on the Hindu and Muslim majority, he started to draw the boundaries.
Right.
And what actually happened was, even if there is like a slight majority,
Let's say 51% Hindus and 49% Muslims, that place would go to India.
yeah,
And if it's 51% Muslims and 49% Hindus, and that place would go to Pakistan. I think the border of Punjab, if you would see, there was 49% Hindus and 51% Muslims, and that had literally gone there. And I think there is one temple where people still go there.
Yeah.
So there was no sentiments taken here. So that's what he wanted to share.
I mean, like this was done so haphazard. There was no need to do it in such a hurry.
Yeah, no need. It's just that I think English people's way to just, wash their hands off very quickly.
Yeah, that's what happened in Africa. If you look at the African borders,
They're very haphazard here, right? And the fact that Britain gets a say in deciding our borders, it's itself very funny to me.
yeah,
I mean, why couldn't Congress not agree to it? And is what I still don't understand. Why were you taking orders till the last moment? I mean, it doesn't just make sense, right? I mean, I don't know. Like, why would you even take orders when you know that you're getting independence? Who is he to draw that line? See, there are two nations. There's Pakistan, there's India. They've decided, Tiki, that they'll divide. Agreed on that part. So there's an equal understanding between both the parties. The Jinnah's All India Muslim League and also our Congresses. Now, my thing is, why would British come and interfere telling ki, see, this part is yours and this part is yours? Why would you play a monkey role there?
I mean, like, that was maybe, I would like to play the devil's advocate here. It was like their way of like completely settling things between the two nations.
But then this
Transferring the power separately to them, yeah, obviously they did, which, led to the very famous, riot, civil wars. There was so much the countries had suffered, like both the countries had suffered because of that. There was like, mass migration going around the borders. There were dead bodies, toiling around in the
trains full of dead bodies. It was trains were loaded the train. I mean, see, thing is, when this kind of hysteria takes place, a lot of things happen. And thing is, in war, when all these things happen, people overlook a lot of things. Yeah, they have lost their mother, father. People have been brutally raped, looted. I mean, it was just a sad day. I mean, that's all we can say after 76 years. But back then, I mean, they could have done so many things differently, right? So much. If diplomacy would have played a part back then, like now, how is it playing, right? I think we wouldn't have had so many bodies, right? I mean, what else to say?
So it is what it is. So that is how one nation was torn apart into the two nations. You have to
and that's what led to the partition of 1947.
Yeah.
And guys, catch you in the next episode.
Don't forget to like, share,
and subscribe.